I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I'm James Brown, and on behalf of the East End Church of Christ, located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday question and answer edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, I'll turn you over to Jeremy Disselkamp for our question of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. Before we get to today's question, I'd like to remind everyone watching that they can submit their own questions to be answered either by commenting on any one of our videos or by emailing them to answerintheword@gmail.com. Obviously, not every question can be answered for this podcast, but if such is the case, we'll either email you back an answer or respond to your comment in the comments section. Today's question is, if my spouse divorced me, can I remarry? The question of divorce and remarriage is one of the most controversial questions facing the church today, along with homosexual relationships and homosexual marriage. The reason it is so controversial is because the teachings of Jesus go against much of society's views on marriage itself and how marriage ends. Divorce rates in many countries approach 40 to 50%, so as Christians go out and teach the gospel, it becomes increasingly likely that we're going to run into and try to teach people who have been divorced and remarried. As a result, many denominational churches have relaxed their teachings on divorce and remarriage, and sadly, that view has also crept in among brethren, those who claim to belong to the Church of the Bible. While there are many aspects of this question that we could consider, in today's episode, we're only going to look at the person who is divorced by their spouse, sometimes referred to as the put-away spouse. We're only going to base our conclusions on the Bible, not on opinion. The verse that we need to go to is found in the book of Matthew 5:31 and 32. It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife except on the ground of sexual immorality makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. This passage occurs during Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It is found in a section where Jesus is commenting on what the people think the law of Moses says, and then he tells them what God actually expects of them. When Jesus says, "But I say unto you," what he is doing is providing them with new law, not merely correcting their views in the law of Moses. The way we know this to be true is because the passage in the law of Moses that he refers to in Matthew 5:31 is Deuteronomy 24:1-4. If you read that passage, nowhere in it will you find the word adultery used. You find the word defilement used in regards to the remarried party, but not adultery. Defilement under the old law could result from many things, one of which is the sin of adultery in Leviticus 18:20. But you could also be defiled simply by having leprosy, as found in Leviticus 13:46. It was not sinful to have leprosy, so just because defilement is used doesn't automatically make it sin and doesn't automatically make it adultery. Therefore, we shouldn't read that word into Deuteronomy 24. Generally speaking, being defiled under the law of Moses could be removed, but defilement caused by remarriage could never be removed. This fact shows us God's hatred of divorce and his expectation that marriage be for life. He tolerated divorce because of the hardness of their hearts, but voiced his displeasure by saying that the woman would be defiled if she married again, meaning that the first husband couldn't remarry her. Now fast forward to the New Testament. Jesus tells the crowd, this is what the law of Moses tolerated, but this is what God is now going to tolerate. If you divorce your spouse except for fornication or adultery and marry another, you cause her to commit adultery. And if you marry someone else who is divorced, you commit adultery. By using the word adultery instead of defilement, Jesus raised the bar here to the level of sin. He created a new law, a New Testament law that all disciples today are to follow. He had the right to do this because he is a lawgiver like Moses. He is the Messiah as prophesied in Deuteronomy 18:18 and 19. From reading what Matthew 19:1-9 says, the reason he changed the law was because under his law, the New Testament law, God would hold mankind to what he designed from the beginning, marriage for life. We're not going to discuss the exception clause here. We're going to leave that for another time. All we're going to do is examine the end of the first clause. Whoever divorces their spouse except for fornication causes her to commit adultery. Is this adultery immediate? No. Just like the defilement in Deuteronomy 24 occurred after the divorced spouse remarried, so too it is with the adultery here in Matthew 5. No guilty or innocent party is used in this passage. Jesus simply states that if you're the person who was put away for whatever reason, you cannot remarry again without committing adultery. That means whether you sinned or not against your spouse, if you were divorced by your spouse or the put away spouse, you can't remarry without sinning. Period. Is it a hard saying to hear? Yes, but it's one we must follow if we want to obey God. Well, I know much more could be said on this topic, but our time is up for now. Please watch this week's sermon titled The Marks of a Christian, a Faithful Person, which James will give you instructions on where to find in a moment. And join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing our study of the book of Genesis, beginning at Genesis 25:29.
Thank you, Jeremy. And for our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below or email us at answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll also watch today's sermon edition, which can be found on our YouTube channel on the Walking Through the Bible 2018 Sermon Edition playlist. Please also join us, Lord willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing our study of the book of Genesis. Goodbye for now and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord.